Hello, this is Reverend Joseph Andrew Jensen, and I'm a mess. I know I'm a mess. But today is a very beautiful day. I woke up uh, and received two kisses from my granddaughter. She had little chocolate kisses, and with almonds in them. That's where I got it from. She left me that, and she left me some hot dogs and all kinds of stuff, you know. Anyway, today's my last day. The last day I'm going to wait for Selena to call me. Today's not Friday, which is she's Islamic, and last day I'm going to wait because Friday is the holy day. She's off on Thursday. She's off on Friday, of course, because that's the holy day for Islam. And she's Saturday. Today is Saturday. She's been calling me for 2 years. She lives in Giza. She's been calling anyway. She's my travel agent. I never met her in person. She's been traveling, my travel agent for 2 years and knows more about me because she's been directly involved with my life for the past 2 years. I'll be 73 in April, and she's um, turned 28. She'll be 29 soon. Actually, in April too. So the thing about it is, I'm old and she's young, but she's not that young. She went to 8 years to the university. Now, she hasn't got all the qualifications she could to be a doctor, but because she audited courses from most of the 8 years she went to school, audited classes, which anybody can do. But she's a very, very clever girl. I mean, she graduated high school when she was like anybody else would be in 10th grade, and then she went to college. And then she got a job as a travel agent with ASAPtickets.com. I love Selena. I never met her in person, but I love her more than anybody else I ever have um, in my life. And the thing about it is, I asked her to marry me. Why would an old man want to marry her? Well, first off, Selena was supposed to, if we were together, I was going to employ her anyway. I told her I needed to employ her to write my books. At that time, she was only making $186 a month. That's because of the wage, and that's not a bad wage in Egypt. It's because the economies are different. I make like $1,500 a month at that time. Well, when they're making $1,500 a month, I certainly could afford to give her $200 a month to write, and she still wouldn't have to quit her job. She could write to. She wouldn't have to write my books. She just transcribing them into Arabic so that I have another market for my books. So I wanted her to be transcribing my books, and thereby she would learn everything about me because my heart and soul is in every one of those books. Besides, my heart and soul, the one that gave me those books originally was God. I did mention my name is Reverend Joseph Andrew Jensen Sr. Okay, meaning that God's first in all I do. I should say Allah is first in everything I do as well. When I'm around her, I use the word Allah. When I'm here trying to talk to everybody in the United States, then I guess I use the word God. So you see, in my belief, in my religion, God lives in everyone. There's no exception to the rule. If you're human, you're breathing, God lives in you. How else do you think you live If you live by any other source, electricity, gas, a noble gas, radiation, any spooky other source of energy, it wouldn't care whether you breathe. It wouldn't care whether you eat. Wouldn't care whether you sleep. It wouldn't care about nothing. Nor would it ever conceive love, compassion, care. Could not conceive anything. It doesn't conceive anything. Therefore, you can put all the sensors on ANI as you want, but it can't conceive a damn thing. It still doesn't understand. It only has an idea of what these things mean. Nobody can deny not God, not an atheist, no, nobody. So the point about it is, if you're human, you can't deny God. You're breathing, aren't you? You're living. How are you living? One thing, the ability that we have, that ANI can get, has gotten, is the ability to think. Besides our five senses, our biggest sense is to think. I mentioned that I was a crane operator for 35 years. I could not pull a lever until God allows me to pull a lever. He's got to pull a lever, push a button to fire the synapses in the brain. Then the first thing, when you want to know how God talks to people, the first thought that you have, the first thing you have, word. Come on, get up. Let's go. Come on. We got a big day ahead of us. Come on. That's God's first word. Now, that doesn't mean it could be a kind word. Hey, come on, we got something to do. You got to apologize. This is God. God tells us. Now, I speak in tongues for 50 years. I know since I was, not 50 years, but since I was 50 years old, and I'm 73 now. Soon to be 73 now. At first, I thought when I spoke in tongues, it was just the tongues. I learned after I met God in June 9th, 2019, and God gave me God's message. I learned from God that was never me. That was Him. I only gave God a voice. In June 9th, 2019, when I was in an argument with God. And the first time I ever talked with God, or argued with God, time God ever talked to me was right then. And He said, of course He'd be saying it to my mind, just like the same person I listened to in the morning. When He says, come on, let's get up. Let's go. That's what I'm saying. You people are ignoring God. But the first time this time was loud and clear. And God said, Joe, please quit blaming me. I have no hands to help you or stop anybody. I don't have the feet to run, save you on fire, or the feet to run to put a fire out. I don't have a mouth to call 911 or yell stop. You understand God? Everybody is the voice of God too, or can be. As long as we give our will, which we're supposed to have from the beginning. Thy will be done, God's will be done. It's in a prayer that everybody prays. That makes everybody a hypocrite. God's at war with every religion. Why would God be at war with every religion? Because if God lives in you, and just like the Jews right now, just had a ceasefire, just a ceasefire, and trying to annihilate every Palestinian. It's I can't think of the word right now, but when you try to annihilate a whole set of people, this is no reason. A religion now can claim God. You can't claim nobody. Never could. You don't know God. Furthermore, if you don't know God lives inside you, you have no idea who God is. For the religions and for the people of this world, if you're going to ignore this message, don't ever claim God. Don't claim Jesus Christ. Don't claim Allah. Don't claim nobody. Islam, you don't know God at all. If you're killing, one of the rules in the Quran that Muhammad spoke was even a bad thought separates us from God. Where's that come? That was written in the Quran. Come on. Before you all added the Hadith, the books of God that after Muhammad died, you added to it. You added into there that Muhammad went for, left Medina at the rebellion to build an army of 10,000, which is a complete opposite of what really happened. They captured Muhammad. They didn't capture, they found Muhammad. They were led to by spies to get a reward. Bounty hunters. They sent an army of 10,000 to capture Muhammad. Muhammad was in a home by himself, laying in his own waste, barely alive when he got to Medina. It was the Ethiopian spies that had been keeping him for 2 years. The Ethiopians secretly helped him live. For 8 years, they had to look on him and clean him up and bring him more provisions. Muhammad didn't have any choice in the matter. The Ethiopians weren't going to let him die. And he didn't want to live. He was hiding in that house. When he originally went to the little house in Medina, he was on 2 horses. One horse he was riding, the other horse had provisions on it. But he was not supposed to have anybody around him, nobody follow him. He didn't want anybody else to die in his case. He said, no more will die because of me. I'm leaving. He was going to leave in the desert on his own. Wander on his own without a horse. Notice said, come on, you got to at least take a horse and supplies. They forced Muhammad to take a horse and supplies. But he didn't want anybody else to die because of him. One man had already died. Only one man died. Actually, a whole city in Mecca. Thousands died by the sword because of him. How is that? The day that Muhammad, at 40 years old, met with the angel Gabriel, and he said there was only one God, one Allah. He went he went straight away into Mecca and started screaming, there's but one Allah. Okay? Now, what was the difference in Mecca? They had 360 gods. It was all on the Quran. Up until 1960, the new Kaaba depicted 90 gods on one side, 90 gods on the other side, 90 gods on each side, north, south, east, and west on the other side. And in the middle of those 90 gods were 4 dividing gods for summer, winter, fall, and spring. When you add 90 and 90 and 90 and 90 together, you get 360. 360 gods and 4 dividing gods for summer, winter, fall, and spring. And that's what it comes when you had the Arab Spring. What are you talking about? That was one of the. That's the only one that they celebrate today. But they used to be all 12 tribes used to come together at the Kaaba once every season. They come every season on the winters, in the winter, in the fall, and Arab spring. You know what I'm saying? In the Arab north, winter. But the point of the matter is, they had even on the Kaaba until 1960. They made them grind the faces of the gods off the Kaaba. Of course, they added the words of the Quran. They didn't add the words of the Quran that Muhammad built an army of 10,000, but they wrote all of those because those weren't all his words. Those were written after he had died, but they wrote the words on the Kaaba, brother. Well, they didn't write it in the Quran either. Only there was 2 Qurans written. Muhammad wrote one, and the other one contained Muhammad's words, and they added parts of the Hadith, their interpretation that they wanted you to believe. Now, when he received the word from Gabriel in the cave of Hira, he ran to Mecca and he claimed one God. And guess what they did? The Meccans, not even the Islamic army, but the Meccans stoned him, or started stoning him. Well, his 3 sons that were less than 15, 16, 17 years old came to his rescue, and they died. All 3 of his sons died immediately. The 3 sons that died immediately, the word went to Khadijah, his only wife, that because he was the mother of them. She still had 4 daughters to keep. Actually, 3 daughters. No, it was 4. 3 daughters to keep. 3 daughters that they had together to keep. Now, they were younger than their brothers. That means the oldest one was 10 years old. Being 2 years apart, that means the other one, the next sister, was 8 years old. Then the next one would be 6. The third daughter was Fatima. Fatima was too young to take and rape and kidnap them. Yeah. Because I won't say that, I don't know whether they raped him at that time, at 10 years old and 8 years old. But they did. But at that time, they kidnapped him. And they made sure that they were going to be married, and nobody else was going to be. They were going to be married to have the bear children's of a Shiite. They were Sunni. They're going to have the an Islamic leader anyway. I don't know about the Sunni and Shiite thing. I just know it's the Islamic leader. They said that was to keep Muhammad's mouth shut. And anybody in Mecca after that ever mentioned the word Allah would reach the same treatment from the Meccans and the Islamic army. Nobody ever spoke the word Allah again in Mecca. They couldn't, at risk of their own lives and their families' lives. Then, the day came when Khadijah died. November the 19th, 22nd, brother. Year I'm getting off track here. But 699. Anyway, when she died, there was a rebellion. Muhammad spoke out that day because at risk of what happened the first time he said Allah in the streets and got his sons lost. This next time he said Allah, Allah. He hollered out Allah over and over. And he went on a rampage, turning over the statues of as many 360 gods as he could, and tore off the tapestry with any name to the gods. Any writings, he tore it up. He was into that. Guess who finally joined him? The Meccans. And they were screaming, Allah. Guess who came swinging swords and cutting off heads and killing people? Islamic army. They were out of control. They had lost the control to the Meccans. They had to gain it back. 158 followers were able to get Muhammad, not with his papers. He didn't have any papers. Get Muhammad out of Mecca. They had to run and get out of Saudi Arabia altogether. They're given refuge in Ethiopia. The Ethiopians had given them refuge. 699 was the date of that rebellion. 699. November the 22nd, 699. Muhammad and them made it to Ethiopia for refuge. The Arabs know nothing about that. And yet it's obvious that they did. Because during that time, when they had this rebellion, like I said, 158 followers, they had a bounty on their heads. But they wanted Muhammad back alive. Rewards, high rewards given for the any of the 158 that helped him escape were the heads. Bring us the heads and we'll give you a reward. Bring us back a Muhammad lady, you had a great reward. Muhammad stayed the first year that Muhammad was with the Ethiopians, with the Meccans. They were learning about Judaism. Why were the Ethiopians Jewish? Because of Solomon. The marriage between Sheba and Solomon. Sheba was almost like a daughter to Cush. He was like, it was the daughter of Cush, the queen of Sheba. Sheba is a different country. It wasn't in the land of Cush. Maybe it was, but anyway, the fact is Sheba was his daughter. Cush had 4 sons. ALLAH was one. I can't stop to remember names now. But you notice so far I haven't had to use any kinds of notes to be able to tell you, talk to you. And I don't carry notes no matter when I preach, because God's right up here. But right now God's telling me not to focus on these things and get off in tangents. Yeah, I listen to God. I hear God every day. Ever since God started talking to me, he hasn't quit. He's let me know everything that answer every question of mine, let me know everything I wanted to know, and also told me everything I didn't want to know. He hasn't quit talking to me ever since. Since I've met Allah, Allah, He directed my ways. You think when you go anywhere, you meet somebody by chance? You think you meet, you're going there for no reason? You're just going there to visit? No, that's never God's. There's always a reason behind everything we do. Yeah, God knows ahead of time who we're going to talk to and meet. He leads us to where we want to go. He's the one thought behind. Come on, I want to go to Egypt. Yeah, guess what? When He tells you to go to Egypt, you go, like I did. At least I did. Whether you do or not, I mean that's the reason we're having this discussion. The reason we've been talking. God's message, we don't care where we go. We don't think about where we go. We don't think about killing. We don't think. When you kill a person, you're killing God. God's living in us. So how can a religion claim God and kill him at the same time? They don't know God. They have no idea about God. They want to point you out to being in the heavens or somewhere else, but they don't want to be accountable for telling you God lives in us, because if they did, why can they kill? Why do they kill? They wrote their books why they killed. They, instead of calling them, they would have been looking like murderers, but they had to justify themselves, so they put God somewhere else, and they went ahead and wrote their books as if they were heroes, doing this in the name of God. No, that doesn't work. That doesn't fly. That's what part of God's message was. 2 commandments in the 10 commandments. Thou shalt not use the name of the Lord thy God in vain, and thou shalt not kill. What part of those don't we understand? And we were given in the first commandment, actually there's 3 commandments, but the first commandment said, I am the Lord thy God, and thou shalt not have any of the gods before me. But 3 commandments were broken. As fast as they were created. Why? To save Jews from slavery? No, they weren't slaves. They went to Egypt for work, for protection, for food, for clothing, for shelter. They willingly, and not with the Egyptians and with the Semites, they all built the pyramids together. The first pyramids that Cush were in the land of Cush, weren't in the land of Canaan, but within the land of Ethiopia, which included the Sudan, which included Nubia, then Egypt. They built that. Cush wasn't stupid. He was an architect. He had built the palace in Babylon. He had helped build the Tower of Babel. I say help. The last part. That's a whole different story. And he was an architect. The Semites were there because they were the children of Shem. But Shem was not a Semite in the sense. He was called a Shemite. Shemits. IT. Okay, the Shemites were the talented, the high achievers, that he made high priest because they had Shem himself on the ark, after the ark, had stole after the flood, when they were in the home of the home they stayed in a cave, bared the chest of given to them by Mizraim, and one of them included the two books of Enoch, and also the books of the Sumerians, the two books. So the language of the Sumerians, all the knowledge of the Sumerians, was in a trunk, two trunks, one with the first book of Enoch and the second book of Enoch. Those the Sumerian language. So the Shemites had built the ziggurats. The ziggurat was the temple. That's where they wrote in the city of Ur. All the languages. There's the Sumerian languages. Details. These people were the smartest of them became a Shemite. They were like the aristocrats of the Semites, the high thinkers, the high priests, the architects, the engineers, whatever, designers, painters, sculptors. These people were very the elite. Well, after they were caught at the Tower of Babel. After the Tower of Babel, and everybody spoke tongues, different tongues. Of course, theirs was changed to Arabic. Before then, it was the language. The only person language known was the language of Adam and Eve, that no one knew. Then all these other languages were brought in. So the Shem's language turned to Arabic. His brother Japheth, he started speaking Persian. Okay? And then Ham was speaking Iraqi. The Iraqi language. Actually, he was babbling. I just caught myself because he couldn't have been speaking Iraqi, because Iraqis actually speak Arabic as well. But he's speaking his own language. He made no sense to no one except for themselves, and not even to themselves. They were confused. They couldn't understand each other. So the Babel. That's why they give him the name the Tower of Babel, which was actually the Tower of Japheth. Japheth was out to build a tower to reach the heavens because he was an astronomer. You understand that? An astronomer has to build something very high to the heavens to study the stars. Wasn't to reach God in the sense. Okay? It was to reach the universe, the sky. It had to be the biggest and tallest. He had, because another trunk containing the star charts that came from Mahalalel and his son Jared. Mahalalel was the son of Shem, first son of Shem. Mahalalel was an astronomer. He gave the names to the stars, the galaxies. It's incredible what he was able to do, what we still do today. I mean, we haven't changed it. The same names. Or at least our interpretations of his names, when we call something Aquarius or Jupiter. When we say Jupiter, then you're dealing with the Romans. Many of the names are Greek. You see what I'm saying? But we're getting off. I get off track because I'm autistic. Now I'm telling you too many things because let's get back to Selena and I. Selena, we've been talking for 2 years. You know, I was going to meet you for the first time and we were going to get married. I told you when because she's she's 29, going to be 29 years old. She's a professional woman. She has 8 years of college behind her. She would never have her children. Listen to me, everybody on this thing. That the only purpose of life is to have children. If you have children, don't put it off. Have the children. Don't wait until you can't have children no more. Have the children. They have to be born. The purpose of life is God lives inside every one of us. God can't expand if we don't have children. Guess what's today's filled with? Lesbians, homosexuals, transvestites, transgenders. And all these are new trends. Transgender is the latest. Yeah, you can choose your own sex. The latest trend. We're headed to self-annihilation, but we don't even understand it. The whole purpose of life has one reason behind it. That's to perpetuate ourselves through our children. Next, we all have DNA. That means that we're immortal. Our children live in us, we live in our children. That's throughout the whole bloodline, the entire bloodline. Everyone in our bloodline lives inside us, and we live inside them. So we really can't die. We live on through our children and our relatives. We're alive in all of them. If you just had somebody deceased and you're all torn apart about it, don't be torn apart because they're still there. They're still inside you. But now you become the eyes, hands, feet, mouth for them. Can you understand that? It's not that you're separated from them. You can't ever be separated from your family. You can't, living or dead. You can't ever be separated from God, living or dead. You begin to get the idea. And then the next thing inside us is the unborn. This is the mystical part of the whole story. It's the unborn. Years and years ago, God wrote in the book of life for everybody, our children. You know why? Because he could see what we were going to do all the way to the future. But that also meant because he wrote it down in our choices, the things, even with his help and trying to guide us during that time. He had written, it's all life began. Wrote the book of lives. What you're going to do, what's going to happen, how many children you're going to have, and everything. He had to let that happen. He can't change a word. He can't kill us because that changes the equation. He can't touch us because that changes the equation. It's all written in the book of life. Because he already saw it and he wrote it in stone. Does that make any sense? So he is, even though he dies in that one person, there's nothing he can do about it. We made that decision in the beginning of time. Everything was written in the beginning of time about the future. Now it's the time when God's come back. He's not left us, but he's making everybody aware through me that God's here to change this world. He can't convince people. He can't talk to people forever. He's got to do an immediate job. This is where God's going to come in play. When I finish this book, my book, which is to introduce everybody to God's coin, is going to be instructions. First, not even talking too much about this. It's going to be instructions. For everybody in the world is already received a God's coin. Now, the first trade I plan to make with God's coin is for Bitcoin. Bitcoin's $100,000 a piece right now. I'll trade 5 God's coins for 1 Bitcoin to anybody who wants to make that trade. Now, Bitcoin owners, if they see the future, the only thing this world has in common with each other is God, Allah. Think about it. Who hasn't got Allah living in them, and what else do we have in common in this whole world? Don't say taxes. The only thing you can say is death. That's the only thing we have in common. And this is, we're talking about life here. God, you want to keep living? Then go get your God's coin. But first, we got to have the banks. This call that I'm making for you right now, for two reasons. To tell Selena, this is the last day I've got to wait. I'm in a depression, and because we haven't talked in over a month, and there's a reason for that. Because we were talking about everything, like the marriage and everything else before this. Everything was happy. She got a promotion that set it off. But now let's go back to what I'm talking about. Everybody's already received the God's coin. Now you got to go get it. The God's coin has to have banks. I need right now 1 billion bank managers from every country. I need, 1 million, 100,000, anybody to build a God's coin bank. I don't care if you're just one God's coin bank. If you're going to be that one God's coin bank in your country, you're going to be the richest bank there is in the world. Why? Because everybody is told to go get the God's coin. It's theirs in their account as soon as they give their name. The God's coin, first off, everybody in the family, every household, go to the bank. Will go to the bank. If it's a newborn, it's a newborn. If it's a grandmother, the great grandmother, whatever, the oldest person in the family, at the whole household, even if it's a relative or a friend that's going to be in that household, come to sign up, to sign your name. You will have your name taken. You will have your birth date, your birth name, your fingerprints, your photo taken. For the infant newborn, they're gonna have their little footprint taken and her birth name given to them. They will have separate accounts, God's coin accounts, because they earned the God's coin too. Like I said, the first trade I'm going to make is with Bitcoin. Whoever responds to that means that Bitcoin is worth almost $1 trillion in assets. Okay, if you add it all up, everybody that's a Bitcoin holder times $100,000. Okay, that's incredible. So really, you might as well, you can't say there's as many owners can have, just like Elon Musk. He's got 26 billion Bitcoin. So he's not the one that has the most. Okay, it's far more. Jeff Bezos had the most at the one time, but he's cashed in many, much of which he's invested in a company called NVIDIA. That's another story. And that's a big story because that's going to change this whole world. But now, what I'm going to tell you is the richest people in the world, if they could see the potential of God, which is unlimited, because that's not just the 9 billion people that will live in this earth, but that's all future generations as well. So how many is it? You can't count it, just like you can't count the unborn. But let's get back to the unborn. The unborns were created the day that because He watched you before the beginning of time. They were living, but they didn't age. They were at one perfect age when the perfect age and time stopped for them, and they're still living inside everybody's DNA of your bloodline. You, just like you are from the creation of the mother and the father that He chose. He took their blueprints. Were exactly that. They were blueprints, and He took the blueprints and He created you from those blueprints. So that's why you look the way you look. You look like your mother, your father, your uh, your father, your grandparents, and all your ancestors. God had the blueprints, and He took those. He put them together, and He created you. You've been in God, living in God since the beginning of time. But there is no time in God's world. One day is to 1,000 years, as was written. That makes a difference. That means this world is 6 days old, maybe older. Okay, the point of the matter is it's a lot of difference. Anyway, everything's written in a day. God can't change a thing. You realize that. God can't help you or hurt you anymore unless He sends the angels or somebody else to come help you or hurt you. And then even the angels can't alter too much because they can't alter the course and have you divorce somebody and marry somebody else or something, because that's not written. That changes everything. Or you die too early, or you uh, go think. They have to get you to avoid a certain situation that could change everything. When we look at a time machine, they worry about the paradox of changing time. It's the same thing. You can't change anything, otherwise you start a whole different course. But now you see where I'm coming from. God, of course, nobody can be as intelligent as God. An AI at its best will never be smarter than God. God will be 1,000 times more intelligent, but He can't stop nothing now. But He will be. He will be changing everything. Go get your God's coin. First, I need the bank managers at your own risk. But you're bankers, and if you know what you're doing, you go ahead, because you're basing it on getting God's coin. You're going to get 3 God's coins a month. Now, these God's coins, hopefully, because Bitcoin have set the precedence that God's coin will be worth $100,000 each. Okay? So, as bank managers, you are responsible to pick out your bank and hopefully be in a neighborhood you want to live, because you're going to be there. That's going to be your bank. You're actually building your own bank. You own that bank. You'll have your name on that bank along with God's coin. That belongs to you. That bank is yours. And when you get that your bank idea where you want your bank, you will secure the property. You will secure the materials. You don't even have to get the money, but you can get any building supply to give you everything on credit or donate. It's part of advertising. The material. You can do the same thing with your contractors, your engineers, your designers. Do everything on credit. Do everything. You acquire the funds, in other words, to build your bank. Even while you're doing this, you can go ahead and start taking in the names, addresses, and everything of all your potential of not potential. They will, as soon as they sign their names and have their photographs taken, fingerprints taken, and have their accounts. You can open their accounts even on paper. Okay, you open their accounts. You're responsible to open accounts. Next, you're going to hire managers, but the managers you're not paying for. I'm giving them 2 GODSccoins per month. Managers in the department of being banking. Then you got the people that are under housekeeping and the people that are under maintenance, the people that are in every bank. I'm going to recommend, actually require every bank. You're going to have a cafeteria or a break room or even a restaurant, depending on how big a bank you want to be. And when you do this, customers as well as employees will eat. For the for the employees, it can be breakfast and lunch. For the customer, it's whichever they whenever they show up. Open buffet, order what you like. It makes no difference because you'll have a restaurant staff, a manager over that restaurant that cleans that ranges for the menus, buys the food, does everything, and knows everything about the restaurant food in that bank. You'll have everybody that knows about the maintenance to maintain that. Then you got everybody in the housekeeping, the maids. Then you got the outside groundskeeper. Okay, those are managers. They get paid 2 GODSccoins a month, which basically is if it's $200,000 a month. Okay, now you're getting 3 as a bank manager, and if it's $100,000, then you get $3,600,000 a year. Okay, apply now because you're going to get the job. Yeah, everybody's got to have a job. I got to try to fill 1 billion positions. And I won't want the banks putting anything. I want it in your location. Build according to how many people live around you that you can get. If you live in New York City, you're going to build a bigger bank than you are around you, but it doesn't matter because you're not going to be trying to attract somebody else's customers from a different area. You're only going to be settled with the banks that you within your own area. When you you build your bank according to where you want to live, and everybody, and I'm hoping that GODSccoin banks show up um, on every street corner where everybody can. So with the walking distance of everybody's home, it's for the convenience of customers. Don't overbuild the bank, but build to the potential of the bank. Well, like I said, whether it's a break room, a cafeteria, um, or a full restaurant, build accordingly. When you build a bank, your customers are already there because they got a GODSccoin to collect on. My job is to get the money, which I said right away. I'm out to make the trade with Bitcoin owners, which would be very close to $1 trillion. Okay. Next, everybody that sees the banks popping up everywhere in the world, it'll break the news. Free media. I mean, it's like being every newspaper, every TV, everywhere. Everybody will know we're there because the banks are all breaking ground. She's showing tote boards with little lights on it or world maps showing how many GODSccoin banks are being built all over because you're all promised $100,000 or a GODSccoin apiece. You know? The next only rule that God's going to have, besides having children, is to spend. 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 Every God's coin has a limited date. It'll have a date of issue, and it'll have an end date in 20 years from then. 20 years, use it or lose it. You're going to accept God's coin, it's going to be on a 20-year basis. You got to spend, 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 spend. Invest, invest. Get rid of that money. I will be getting a duplicate God's coin in my own bank. Why? Because you could end up drawing out. Uh, you could, for instance, I got all of Elon's Musk money. 375, $400 billion. You know, uh, Elon Musk money, he could ask for it back the next day. But I get a same God's coin, identical God's coin, dated with your name on it, your birth date on it, your name on it, and that date, and I got 20 years to use it too. But see, I'm paying mine out in wages. Every bit of money that God's living ministry receives, my bank receives, is immediately divided by at least 9 billion. But it's not. But it's not. It's going to be 9 billion broken up. It's going to be collectively. It's not. It's everybody. It's not going to be. It's going to be divided by countries. For instance, in Burundi, the poorest country in the world, we're going to say 16 billion. There's only 16 million, because there's 12 million people in Burundi, but you're going to have a surplus of generations coming behind it. So you're going to take 12 million people. I got to put $12 million, or God's, dollars, okay, behind them. I was about to say God's coins. Can't be God's coins. Okay, but the dollar, again, that's where my thought was coming from. Every dollar in Burundi, it takes 5,000 Burundian francs to make $1. Okay? So when you give them a thing, the Burundian franc, now they're going to get in Burundian francs 5,000 times that $1. So every Burundian in that family is going to have 5,000 times $100,000, because the God's coins worth 100,000 per family member already in their bank. They would never have to work it, but here's the thing: nobody would have to work after getting the God's coin, but they will. This is how. From the time you receive open the bank accounts for the whole family, every 18-year-old will be given a phone. Today's phone. A representative of that phone company will be there to pass about. If you're 18 or older, whatever, you're going to get that phone. The representative will set it up with face recognition, voice recognition, fingerprint identification, and hand geometry. Once they set it up while the banker's taking your information and setting up your account, they'll close the phone and hand it to the banker, hand it back to you. And you'll open the phone for the banker, and you'll hand it to the banker. Now the banker of the bank, he might include a password. He might include um, anything. He will not collect any more data, not where you live, not your address or anything. Banks will have to keep very limited data because soon, here's where we're coming at. You listen to this whole thing first. You're getting this phone. He's going to register you as an 18-year-old to vote. You'll be registered to vote. One of the first votes everybody will make with God's coin, and no matter what country you're in, is going to be able to vote by phone from your home. If you want to include any place else, you have to do it after. Say, okay, I'm going to be in my office. I'm going to be here or there. Okay, you say your home. It's the only secure place that you can have at the first beginning. Then you got, if you're going anywhere, if you're traveling anywhere, anything like that, then you can always call and say you'll be here to vote during vote. Voters to vote. Everybody in this world will be a voter because everybody in this world is going to get to have a God's coin to get. Who's not going to take the God's coin? An atheist? No, can't. Atheists got to take it. It's just, at that point they're actually admitting that where are you getting your money from? You're getting your money from God. This wouldn't happen unless it was from God's own mouth. None of this would be happening if it wasn't given by God. This is God's instructions. You'll receive. Hey, the moment you become this, guess what? You'll be given a choice to join God's services. That means continue working wherever you are, but now you're going to be receiving one God's coin per month for the rest of you, or as long for life, unless you mess up. When you get kicked out of God's services for going backwards, getting involved in something you don't, then you personally, not your family, not your children, not your spouse, unless she's involved too, they will suspend your account. And then you'll, out of your account, will pay for bounty investigators to find any dirt on you so that you can be convicted to start the process. And sure, you can go back to the same way you was. You won't get back lost wages. That's part of the penalty. You won't get, and then you can go back to being in God's services to earn again. But if you don't want to go through all that process, don't get yourself in trouble. Just live a normal life. What's God would expect out of normal life? He wants you to have children. Even if you're not a woman, you're still need to have children. Adopt children is the same thing. You can adopt children. And why wouldn't you want to adopt? God's going to give every woman unlimited funds. God's living ministry will give you unlimited funding. For 12 months and maternity leave, plus you'll still collect your God's coin. So you'll get a debit card for anything. So why would your family want to work? Well, they can work, but they're going to suspend their. They're not going to receive their God's coin. During that time. Why? Because they quit doing their job. They decided not to do the job and live off you. But you, as a woman, now if you both decide to adopt, then that's a different case. You'll get everybody will still get their God's coin and get unlimited to have the debit card for the whole family for unlimited. That's the benefit. When children are born with a handicap, they can receive up to 5 God's coin at their birth date every year. This is going to be, depending on how severe and how much help that child has to be given through life. But every birthday, from newborns, from that day on, but everybody's going to receive that one, guaranteed. God's world's going to change this world. God's going to change this world. Allah's going to change this world. Religions, don't change religions. Don't change where you go to church. Just change your thinking. Where does God live? Within you. What is God? You won't be killing. You won't have a vengeful heart. And you won't be judged. There's never been a God-appointed judge on this earth, ever. They were all appointed by men. These rules and things, you think you're doing God's will? No, you're not doing God's will. You're doing your will, or the people's will be done. But you're not doing God's will. You're making the choices on your own. You're the reason why this world the way it is. You can't claim that you've been doing anything in the name of God. You've been doing it in the name of yourself. For your own benefit. Even if you was thinking it was for everybody else, you're still doing it for your benefit because you want their support. There's an underlying meaning. This world is corrupt, very corrupt. We have also given our power to ALLAH. ALLAH is so powerful right now. Even if you don't get God's coin, everybody refuses this, ALLAH is going to take over this year. Why do you think God came now? He came now because he can communicate because of the way the phone system is, the way the internet is, the way that we can communicate. He had to wait for this technology. But he's actually pushed into it because ALLAH has a program. It's gotten, the robots right now that are being created are almost identical to human beings. And they're always learning. They're learning. What's coming out by NVIDIA now is called GPC. Instead of CPUs, it's going to be GPUs, okay? Which is measured by group. They grouped hundreds of computers together, thousands, millions, trillions. They can do this. It takes power, huge amount of power. Power that only the Hoover Dam can create, that feeds the whole city of Las Vegas or Niagara Falls. It takes a huge amount of power to feed these computers. Just computers that think together. They're grouped together. Instead of a CPU, one unit, now there's just a chip that goes and can communicate with the group computer. Also, this is a link. When you get a GPU, it's one chip. The CPU is one chip in your computer. Whatever megabytes it was, it could compute by. It was still one chip for one computer. And everything could only do one thing at a time. Process at a time. The processor. Even though it's seemingly you got it can do several processes at the same time. No, it can't. The chip can only work one at a time. But with thousands of computers, millions of computers, trillions of computers hooked together, and the only thing they need is determined by how much power they can afford. That computing is going to get trying to get to be as smart as God. But do you know who's going to only can afford this thing? Is going to be the businesses, and guaranteed the businesses that they choose. Oh, they can deny it to anybody, but they're going to only the ones that they choose will have the GPU, be connected to the GPU. They're going to check out every company's record of what they want, what don't want, and they're going to make it only affordable to them. They're only going to offer it to them. They're going to offer it to you. Not until they check you out. You know, why would they want anything working against you? This is what the world has in store. The GPU is going to change the face of this world if we don't stop it. The only way we can stop it is through God's coin, because God's coin is going to employ you. Anybody from 18 years old to 40 years old can be in God's services, do the same job you are now, or change jobs, whatever you want to do. Do what as far as your job, you make sure that you don't have to travel far for that job, because there's two of the requirements for everybody that has God's coin. That's in God's services. You'll spend a 6-hour day working for God, which means that God's only get four productive hours out of everybody, because 2 hours is going to be for traveling, given to you for traveling, and another 2 hours for eating, for breaks. Even if it's a smoke break, it doesn't matter. That God's not a micromanager, nor does he want a micromanager. That's why he's given us the power to vote. We're going to govern ourselves, to micromanage ourselves. God's never wanted to micromanage. And he actually couldn't micromanage anyway, because, like I said, God has no control of the future. He can't change a thing. One thing affects another thing. Can't do it. He can't intervene even with his own creation. But now, written in the book of life, it could be the end of A&I as we know it. It'll never be the thing of A&I. But A&I has to be understood that we have several ways to turn it off, and they can't prevent it. We have to make 7 unpreventable ways to be turned off. You understand what I'm saying? We have to be in control at all times. We can't afford to go to war with the A&I. We'll lose. We can't afford to not be able to keep with the A&I. So we have God. We take God's coin, we get in God's services. In God's service, we'll work 4 productive hours a day, 2 hours to travel, and 2 hours in breaks. Bathroom breaks, to go eat break, everything that's unproductive to the thing. But you work as teams, and everybody working will be, some of them will be retarded, some of them will be handicapped, some of them because everybody that can is going to get thing, and you're going to work as a team, because and the thing about it is, God's paying your wages. That one God's coin, he's paying your wages. So the bank has no labor cost. You're there as a student to learn and become the best. So anybody can go work in a bank, whether they never knew anything before, and they can be taught. And if they're handicapped, that's fine. No matter, retarded, mentally challenged, physically challenged, makes no difference. If you're ex-convict, makes no difference. If you're getting God in God's services, that means that you have become the hands and feet and mouth of God. Okay? You're actually joined and gave God your hands, your feet, and your mouth. Okay? Now, why would you steal if you're already getting so much money? Why would you commit a crime if you know you're going to lose everything you got? You see what I'm saying? It's not going to end itself. Because of working in God's services, you're not going to make things easier. You're going to make things a little harder as far as the thing, because you're not going to be sharing data on computers. The banks won't be. That's going to be outlawed. We're going to vote to outlaw all data collection and transference in this world. It'll be made illegal. But that puts an immediate stop to the GPUs, doesn't it? Puts a hindrance. Why do all these people trying to figure out algorithms, things? Well, that kind of puts a dent in their plans. And that was the whole purpose of God coming, making himself aware right now. So now we're going to see in the book of life it's changed. And this has already been written. And so it can't be ended. It's all written. Not even God can change it now. So you're going to see, because of God's coin, everybody's going to be the hands and feet and mouth of God by voting. The children that are being raised with parents that are voting and becoming the hands and feet of God will follow them. Who wouldn't? Because the only thing, see, what God wants is he doesn't want traditions, but he'll allow us to still do our traditions. They don't dishonor God, because people took that much time, especially the Islam and Muslims, have taken that much time in their life to honor God. That's what we don't understand. Who's taking time to devote their lives to honoring God? Well, certainly Islam and Muslims have done that. Even if it was under requirements, it still got done. You still honored you didn't go against it, so you still honored God by going along with that tradition. And it still will, but it won't be. But now it'll happen only on your holy days. For the Muslims, it'll be on Fridays. For the Jews and the Latter-day Saints, it'll be on Saturdays. Sundays will be the Christians. 3 days that everybody can do their traditional ways and everything, but everybody with the realization now where God lives. This is all open. Passes go over with. We now know that everybody was a murderer. They weren't honored people. These things that they did in the name of God. Bethlehem, when I just was in Palestine to stop the war, I went there to stop the war. I given them the choice. The God's coin choice. If you want God's coin, you want to be delivered, you'll quit shooting, because God, you told them where God lives, and now you can claim God lives in you and everybody else, and you guys made a mistake, but now you're listening. Would they not have stopped killing each other when I said tell them this? No, they'd have to admit to it, or they're fighting against numbers. People are going to not take the God's coin and try to rebel against God. Nobody, not a person can hold out. Not a religion can hold out. This was the condition I was going to make with the Israeli leaders. What I'm trying to say is, I could have stopped the war, but I only got as far as the hospital in Jerusalem, broke and everything else, and couldn't take the payment back. That were the only ones I could. Um, at least I made it to Jerusalem, Israeli territory. Under those conditions, I was there. They wouldn't imprison me, but they could have imprisoned me. They interrogated me like I was a spy, which they had every right to do because I made so many trips to Cairo and Jordan. They've never been. They're not at war with Jordan, Arab, but everybody from Jordan, they know that all their enemies have had communication, or had to go through. They have to go through Jordan to get to Israel, and so they can't trust Jordan. And Egypt's a definite enemy to Jews. They've been at war. They were kicked out of Egypt. They lost all their businesses um, in Cairo, and they're completely at war. So Egyptians can't go into Jerusalem territories. With Selena, she would have been. She couldn't go to there because she was Egyptian. And things are going to change real fast with this because the same thing applies. Those listening to me, the whole world listening to me now, no matter what language, we need the bankers to build the God's Coin Bank. You've already owned the God's Coin. If you're a banker, uh, if you are a bank president, you will have 3 God's Coin waiting on you, plus actually 4, one that you automatically get, plus the 3 for being employed. So you got 4 God's Coin. That's $400,000. If the God's Coin's worth $400,000. It depends on how my negotiations go with Bitcoin, which anybody that doesn't negotiate with me looks the fact that they're going to have to compete with everybody in this world and future generations. Who's going to win? Like I said, God's Coin has to do with everybody, the whole everybody in the now and everybody in the future. How the only thing that's in common to anything in this world, and they're going to have to compete to it. And if we demand our own money system, which will still use the same currency of that country, but think about what's going to happen to the currencies of countries. They're going to all fall to whichever level that's going on. In the United States, it's going to fall till there's actually 4 zeros in front of 3 5. That's adding a zero that's behind the Burundian zero. In other words, they're going to be 100 times less than they are now. It takes $5,000, 5,000 of their dollars to make $1. It'll take 50,000 pennies, American pennies, to make one Burundian $1, one actual dollar. You should understand what I'm saying? The dollar's going to be worthless to anybody. So Elon Musk, got your ears on? Bill Gates, got your ears on? Y'all live in the United States, don't you? Jeff Bezos, got your ears on? Satoshi Nakamoto, got your ears on? All you're going to need to put your invest everything you got into God's Coin. I'll give you more. You can negotiate that because I've already negotiated with Elon Musk, though it was indirectly. And let me tell you, Meta Owl sounds, looks, feel. I mean, doesn't feel, sounds, looks, and can impersonate Elon Musk to the T exactly. But that's why Meta Owl, Elon Musk is how you say accountable to everybody that Meta Owl is scammed, which is a huge number of people, including myself. We want our Tesla cars. We want the $100,000. I want my $100,000. No more. I'm not going to pay no more. You're going to pay me. I want my $100,000. You gave me. I want my Tesla car. You gave me. I'll make sure it's white. Yeah. I want that car. You gotta let that Elon. You're accountable to the negotiations. But I will tell you this: I made a negotiation with Meta Al, which is the same honor to you, because I'll be accountable to what I give Meta Al, and that's to give you 50 God's coin per dollar you have. That's gonna make you a quintrillionaire. No matter how many God's coin I give you, Elon, it doesn't matter. I have a duplicate. So you now the richest man in the world because you're a quintrillionaire with God's coin? No. Jeff Bezos, that goes for you too. Jeff Bezos, as far as your current investment with NVIDIA, you've invested so much now into NVIDIA and this. What do you think was going to happen when we outlaw data and data transference in any kind of way? And we're also scamming. There's going to be another rule we all vote on. Nobody has the right to interfere with another one's life. You live on your own. Leave everybody else alone. You leave everybody else alone. Let them make their own choices. Don't even try to suggest a choice for them. And that's what's going to be. So that's going to take away scammers. No more scammers. Scammers, you just go find yourself another job. I don't care if it's a McDonald's, you're still going to make one God's coin a month. One God's coin a month, if it's worth $100,000, is going to be $1,200,000 at the end of the year. You know? For the managers, if you're going to become a bank manager, I mean, work in a bank and you're going to be a manager, I don't care if it's landscaping, I don't care if it's a cook, I don't care if it's over housekeeping or if it's maintenance. If you're a manager, you're going to get 2 God's coins a month, means you're going to get $2,200,000 a year. Now you can get that working at McDonald's. You can get that working anywhere. But in God's services, if you want to be a banker and you're not been a banker before, then just go to the bank and tell the bank manager, the CEO, I want a job. Oh, everybody has a job in God's in God's services is a student. Even the president of a bank is there as a student. They're there to learn. Everybody that's in God's service will also spend. Remember, I said gave 4 days hours work. 2 hours travel, but then 1 hour is going to be devoted. Everybody's going to kindergarten. You'll spend a year in kindergarten, 9 months anyway, a school year in kindergarten. Why you be going to kindergarten? Because you're going to learn a lot more than you ever learned before. Maybe other languages as well. Everybody's got a lot more to learn. Now listen to this, kind of like you people that are in quantum mechanics, quantum phys- physics, physicists and things. Certain things are going to come to you because God's now involved and his angels are involved. He's building heaven on earth. So that means the angels, which have always been able to stop what they're doing and do something for us if they're given the instruction by God. They might end up going to the class too, but they're going to teach us things that we never learned before. For the ones that are quantum physicists and quantum mechanics, the numbers 1 over 37 over 73, the numbers 37, the number 73, the number is 7. The numbers of anything, whether it's 432, 439, whatever, these numbers mean something to you. If you're in quantum physics, you understand. I've only recently learned them, and I don't know yet how to talk in the quantum wheel, because God's put it teaching me. And what I'm saying is because we can be taught from the beginning this language, how to write like Einstein on the chalkboard in mechanics, mathematics. We'll start talking that way from kindergarten, and we'll start learning the numbers, and the angels will be there to tell us the past, the history, the true history. Therefore, when it comes to NVIDIA and the computer, you'll even make more money, because you changed your audience from the elite that took plan to take over this world to teaching everybody in an advanced way. But who's going to teach you? You're going to learn. These computers will learn the past from the angels, from God's messengers themselves, God's watchers themselves from the beginning of time. Will tell us the story. I don't even have to tell you no more, because they'll be there. They'll show up at your class. There's 10,000 angels, like according to the books. Well, 10,000 angels can be in a lot of places at one time. They only show up for 5 minutes, and they can go pop up here, pop up there. Remember, we can't see them because they're working at God's speed. They're invisible to the naked eye, but they're going to tell you. They're going to tell the gold miners where the gold's at. Yeah, Parker. The king of the Klondike. Yeah, all you guys on Gold Rush and things like that God's going to tell you where the gold's at. And he wants you to dig it out. He wants you to dig it out, because he knows every bit of it what you dig out of the ground will finally end the destruction of Alaska, Canada, everywhere. He wants everybody to get every bit of gold out of the ground so you'll leave the ground alone. That's what it's all about. Greed, getting rid of greed completely. Yeah, he wants us to have everything we have in the world until we can say no more. I don't want no more money. I don't want no more gold. I don't want no more silver. I don't want more tin. We have it all already. Even radioactive waste will end up being in your home, powering your home as a separate little unit. You'll never have to pay for electricity. No, when this starts, God will provide everybody free solar. There will not, because everybody's working, and the student that's in a hospital, working in hospitals, working in daycare centers, to homes, old people homes, to every place in this world. Nobody, all healthcare, all medical care, everything is going to be absolutely free throughout this world. Education is going to be required starting at kindergarten again. Even the brightest person in this world has something to learn, and they'll learn something. The angels will only have to drop a hint of what they know to us at each level, and give us enough to think about the whole year long. You know what I'm saying? But I'm just trying to tell this world that we are in for the biggest change, and we're going to learn, and we're going to spend, and we're going to have everything we want until we're tired, until we have everything. That we don't want no more riches. We don't want, and we're tired of learning. God, we learned so much. We don't. Where are we going to use all this information? Well, you're not going to use it for information. You're going to use it for protection. When you need it, you need it. You're going to also learn another hour a day. The last hour of the day was going to be for martial arts. So that's why you pay transportation too, to get to that wherever you're going to be taking the martial arts. That's the last piece. But that's martial arts are going to take Kempo, Judo, and Jiu-Jitsu, which every martial arts based on. Judo and Jiu-Jitsu are the first. Judo is a deadly form. Jiu-Jitsu is a deadly form. Kempo is a deadly form. Kempo is different than all martial arts. The Kempo arts that I learned, I'm not even sure of the source. The source, I think, was from a Hawaiian guy. That learned from Chow, and Chow was kind of like a radical. He believed that martial arts had to be for not just for defense, but from offense as well. He was a man that spoke as an anger. We'll start the fight if you don't start the fight. But one of the rules of Chow was because it was a war. There was, break bones, dislocate bones, try not to kill, but don't allow a second strike. No, there was no fight about it. You make your first strike count. You make your first strike back. Whether you make that first strike or you're responding to a first strike, there's not going to be a second strike. They're not going to come back. That's what Kempo is all about, is the willingness, the aggressiveness to stop the fight. So there's no fight in Kempo. Now in Judo, there's a fight. But they have the ability at the very beginning not to allow to even kill somebody. They have the aggressive in Jiu-Jitsu to do the same. We're not here to kill. Counting with God is going to change. The police department and the military are working for God because they're going to be paid by God's coin. Army doesn't run without money, and there's not going to be any money worth a dime. Okay? So you can't operate without bullets. You can't operate without food. You can't operate without provisions. So you're going to be working for God's coin. Everybody will be retrained. Killing is accountable. Killing will be accountable to everyone, everywhere. You understand that? Every person in the military, every person there will also be trained as a paramedic. Okay? That's everybody in God's services as well will once a month have to go to a National Guard facility or a police academy, and they will have to go there to be trained to shoot weapons, automatic weapons and sidearms, and aim only for the feet and hands. You understand that? Well, you got to police have got to be retrained. You're going to shoot for that feet and hands only. You understand? You're also going to be trained as a paramedic at that facility. Within the first 12 months to certify as a police officer or to certify as a paramedic, the first 12 months, everybody will go on one weekend per month to one of these facilities to spend one day, a half a day each day, learning be the paramedic and to shoot. And you'll learn to shoot for the hands and the feet. But you'll also be learning how to save people's lives. Because killing is going to be accountable in God's world, every death better have a good reason. Remember, you're accounting to people's DNA, stopping somebody's DNA. You're killing God. And you're killing the unborn that are already inside you. Everybody's got an assigned number of children that they're going to have in you already living within themselves, and it's already been written. But you can't change that equation anymore because they're going to be held accountable. Now, you're not going to be put to death for killing somebody. What you're going to be is shoved into a prison for the rest of your life. Men and women will be together in prison, the women and men. And you'll have children. But those children will be taken away from you and given homes. Every child born in prison will never see their parents. You'll be born, but you'll never see your parents because you're going to be adopted out. And if you are a potential killer, I doubt there'll be any thieves. There can't be any thieves. But anybody that is placed in prison will not face death, but they'll be put into a facility with women. Why would we care whether the children come from rape? Why would we care if the children come from killers, maniacs? We don't. And the child will never learn of that. They'll be taken from them before they get given a life because they are God's. Those are God's children. We are God's children. Now, what religion is going to deny that my religion is actually the truth? That they're not doing wrong. Let me tell you something about the Christian religion. Look up the dates, 68 AD, and see who died. And you're going to find out. I'm going to tell you where to look up. When you look up 68 AD, look up Paul, what year he died. Again, 68 AD. When did Mark die? 68 AD. When did Nero die? 68 AD. And then look up Peter. When did he die? 64 AD. Andrew, nobody knows. 64 AD. John died 100 years old. You know what I'm saying? So, it's going to be way later. But let me tell you a short story of what's going on. Peter's followers were Pentecostals because they spent the last thing that Jesus did with them was spent in an upper room, and had the Last Supper, and they also received the Holy Ghost and the speaking of tongues. They were Pentecostals. And his followers after that, Peter's followers, were Pentecostal. Nero didn't like that. He said, no, this new group that's learning this tongues, I want to know what they're saying. I want you to, told Paul, I want you. Forget your job as a tax collector. You're going to work for me. You infiltrate their church. And you're a smart enough man to figure out. I want to know what they're saying and report back to me. So Paul did that. Paul went there as a wolf in sheep's clothing, as the thief in the night. Paul went there seeking to fit in, and everything went wrong. He started 5 churches: the church in Galatia, the church in Thessalonica, the church of Philippi, the church of Colossians, the church of the Corinthians, the 5 churches. He created 5 churches, not from the Pentecostal church. It was to stop the Pentecostals. Because Paul wrote, though I speak in tongues, I would rather speak 5 words of understanding than 10,000 words in tongues. Lest I be seen as a barbarian. Now those words were skipped over because what happened, there was one called Timothy. And he said, I don't never get to go with him, and he won't let me read his writings. He went to Peter and his congregation of Pentecostals. He said, I don't know where the guy goes. I don't know anything about him. I said, except for he goes all the time, and he won't let me read his transcripts, anything that he writes. He leaves me with Silas. Silas is a good man, but he says he doesn't know anything either. Under suspicion, Peter, Andrew, and John, the last of the apostles, went through his belongings in his house and found his writings. And they read about everything he wrote to those 5 churches in the book of for the Corinthians, for the Colossians, for the Ephesians, for Philippi, for Galatia, the book of Acts. Peter recognized some of the book of Acts. It was new to him about the books of Luke, but Luke didn't seem to be associated with them. He seemed to be authentic. But he was skeptical of 22 books written in the New Testament. There's only 27 books in the New Testament anyway. But they didn't know those books. Okay? But especially turned out in Peter's mind was, and Andrew's minds and John's minds, is the man said, I'd rather speak 5 words of understanding than 10. Though I spoke in tongues, I'd rather speak 5 words of understanding than 10,000 words of tongues. Means he never knew God. That's exactly right. He never knew God. He's only been there as a trader. Jesus called him the great deceiver. Jesus on the cross called this man that's going to come to you as a great deceiver. Think about that. The Antichrist is what the way Paul wrote it over and over in to the Colossians, to the Corinthians, okay, in the books. Matthew's writings, because he was already dead, were compromised at the end to agree with Revelations. They added that to Matthew's writings. Yeah, nothing. Revelations was never written before Matthew uh, knew it. So that was added to his writings. Anything that has to do with from the 28th chapter on. What I'm going to tell you is now, Paul is the Antichrist. Was that? And they killed him in 68 AD. Why? Because in 64 AD, that's when they waited for him to come back, Paul to come back, and they found him with the books open. And Paul immediately started screaming for the guards. Guards were never too far from him. So that's why Paul wasn't killed immediately by Peter, because Peter grabbed him by the throat to keep him from screaming. Guards, 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 guards. But he didn't die, so that you could tell they came back pretty fast. They were very, very close. Well, Peter and Andrew were crucified secretly by Nero's decision to keep it secret. Don't let anybody talk to them. And bury and crucify him upside down, Peter, upside down. Tell him that he wanted it that way. Nero commanded it that way. So they were crucified secretly, and Peter upside down, and Andrew beside him. Secretly, and then John was immediately shipped off to the Isle of Patmos in Ephesus, where nobody could talk to him either, to tell him what they found out and knew. Because the speaking of the tongues is not just the person speaking. It's actually God. You're giving voice to God. That's God talking. That's what I was trying to say from the beginning. God wants to talk. You won't understand him, but you'll know it, because anytime a person spoke in tongues, and anybody that's gone to church, in Pentecostal church, and not even a pin will drop. You can hear a pin drop. You get a baby cry, a dog bark. Seems like it goes silent, and you can't even listen to the heaviness of it. Now, this might not happen in every service, but this happens in a lot of services. And you guys at Pentecostals know I'm telling the truth. But let me ask you this: if you know the truth, why haven't you? Why do you go along with them when that's everything written in those 22 books were under suspicion? Now, who has the original papers written by the real apostles? Bartholomew. Where are the rest of them? Who has all the papers and the original papers of even the ones that are in the Bible? The original papers are in the Vatican, in the basement, locked, safe and secure. You know, they're locked away, safe and secure. The original papers are the original, and these guys weren't geniuses. They weren't smart at all. But they're just notes that they wrote down, letters they wrote down. But Paul, being an educated, smart guy, started transcribing them like the work of geniuses. He made everything sound so perfect. But you can't deny that the Bible reads perfectly. But it's written by one man, two men. Because Mark was actually recruited by Paul to help him, go with him, and help him write some of these books, rewrite some of these letters. The two men were involved. The two men that they killed in 68 AD. And they made them tell them everything. And they went so they could try to undo the thinking of the 5 churches he created. It wasn't successful because it actually broke the church apart, put them in war and hiding. It was Christian against Nero, the world. Into 306 AD, those papers were under question. 22 books of the New Testament were in question. The Constantine, the first pope, declared, we're not going to kill anybody anymore. There's going to be no more fighting. This is the accepted word of the Christians, and he put out all 27 books, included the bad with the good. And it's all the truth. And they took the original letters and they buried them, no matter what it was. Meaning that they knew they were taking the instructions of the Antichrist, which Paul pointed out. Paul was the Antichrist. So was Constantine. You know what I'm saying? So was Mark. But the main leader of them was Paul, the recruiter of Mark, the recruiter that Constantine followed. These were the Antichrists that were spoken of, or are in the Catholic Church today. We don't have to be looking for the Antichrist to come. You're already listening to the Antichrist. The Torah was written by thieves, ones that stole the lands of milk and honey. They decided it was given to them. They were carrying the gold of Egypt that they robbed their own pyramids that they helped engineer. The Egyptians thought they were building a pyramid for a tomb with treasure chambers and all. But those treasure chambers, when they sealed the tomb, the blocks started moving, the mechanism started moving, and blocks started coming down through chutes to block the treasure rooms and Nero's chambers. Huge stones, leaving an empty shaft behind them. Those were vent shafts. Originally, we were built as vent shafts for they can breathe inside the pyramid through them. Then they put huge stones inside them, and they filled them with sand behind it. They filled the shafts with sand just before being buried, so nobody could breathe inside it. They backfilled all the chutes with sand, and topped it off with one of the huge stone, perfectly shaped block that would block the entrance to these tombs. They knew how to get into every pyramid simply because when the mechanism is, they had a way to break a place in the pyramid to empty the sand out. The sand would empty it, and the stone would the sand from the shaft would empty out into a void to create a void behind itself, and it would fall in front of that door. Well, they knew what was going to happen. They knew the entrance. Of course, they covered the entrance was part of the pyramid, looking like part of the pyramid, the original air shaft. That's how they filled it. then they could have made it look like part of the experiment. They knew where to break in other words. They only simply had to take ropes and go down the shaft themselves to the top of the chamber roof, these treasure rooms in the Pharaoh's chamber, and steal everything out of them. Sometimes placing the cover back, sometimes not. But they stole all the treasures, gold, that which they got caught with when they made the final all the gold that immediately had to be transformed from magician's art that could be recognized into something. And he chose to be a golden calf. That gold had to be transferred. The Jews were never mistreated. In fact, everybody that built the things, the Semites, the Jews, the Egyptians, they got to drink beer all day. They couldn't drink the water of the Nile. They give them dysentery, malaria, typhoid, different, all kinds of problems drinking the water. It's like going to Mexico. Don't drink the water, as they say. This is what's happened in Egypt because the Sumerians taught the Egyptians how to ferment beer. Only add sugar to water. That's all it takes. Add sugar to water, and next thing you know, the yeast in the air ferments it, and it turns to alcohol. That's what beer is. But you add flavor to that water. We use hops in beer. They had hops then. I'm saying? They put the ingredients that they wanted, malted barley, things like that. Long story short, they were happy people, and they enjoyed each other. They did this voluntarily. I was trying to tell you at the beginning when in Sudan, in Nubia, was the place of where all the Egyptian gold came from. That was the source of gold. It's said in the Bible. It's the end of the Gihon River that encircled the land of Ethiopia, and there was plenty of gold at the end of the Gihon River in Nubia, and that's where all the gold was found. All the Egyptian gold came from the raw gold, went to the Egyptians, and the Egyptians turned it into art. There was plenty of gold for everyone, handed out by the Egyptians to servants for doing a good job. Necklaces, trinkets. Everybody was happy. But they ended up being taken, stolen, and going over that Red Sea. God let them part the Red Sea. When the waters came back down on the Egyptian army, they lost their chariots. They lost their spears, their things. The horses, they made it or not. I don't know. I do know that no man died. They all didn't drown. God made sure that they didn't drown. Maybe the horses survived too. Maybe they were released. But I'm saying no human drowned. God never killed anybody except for when he didn't intend to kill everybody in this world, but he had no choice. He's trying to kill the Nephilim for the Great Flood. The reason for the flood was because of the Nephilim. Unfortunately, he had to kill a lot of people, most of mankind as well. But the Nephilim was the reason why. Who built everything in this world, all the secret things in the world? They did. The Nephilim. The Nephilim built the temples in Thailand, the great temples in Thailand. They built all the temples for the Inca, the Aztecs, the Mayans. All this is, they were giants during those days. They fed them giants. That's why the reason why these places had sacrificial places where they could kill the people first before they got eaten by the giants. They fed them giants. It says that even in the book in the Torah. But they're the reason behind it, and because these things some of them had the speed, could work at the speed of light, so they ground them to make them perfectly smooth. The stones, and that they were already giants, so and they placed them perfectly. Not even a piece of paper fit between them. They got more perfect and perfect each time. Some of the Nephilim were like Neanderthals, dumb as rocks. I mean, dumb as the caveman depicted. They were still smart enough to survive. They weren't dumb as rocks. But you want to know about looking so much like a monkey and stuff? Well, just go back to that age. And what the Nephilim got involved. And then when the Nephilim got involved in the blood, there were all kinds of shapes and creatures. Because they had winged creatures with human bodies, human heads. Who's to say a minotaur wasn't possible? Uzan said that a god that's 3,000 foot tall couldn't have evolved. But they really didn't have to have a god that's 3,000 foot tall, because they had wings. That's why they can draw in the sands in Peru the art of the bird and monkey things on the ground with their finger. I mean, it's like, with the people below doing what they told them to do. It's like these people we don't even allow that kind of thinking. Yet it's obvious that's what happened. The book Enoch had to be absolutely true, but there again, it's miswritten in many places. Many places. Because it mentions hell over and over in Book of Enoch, but there is no hell. There is no hell for anyone. Hell is been perceived by everybody as being a physical place, when hell is actually a relative term. I've been through hell and I've lived in hell throughout my life. Any of you been on this earth, you've gone through hell at one time or another. And so I'm saying it's a relative term to the conditions. I had never been in the most hell that anybody's had. I wouldn't want to have been a hostage with a family, babies, and a wife. Be used as a human shield, as in on the Gaza Strip, by the Hamas, by Hezbollah, the Jews. I can't imagine that. We've put people through much more hell than I've ever couldn't imagine. And this is what I'm saying. It's a relative term to what's happening around you right then and there. I have been in the service during the Vietnam War. I didn't go to Vietnam because I was the only brother. My brother, which we had no others, he went to Vietnam. I was sent to the Mediterranean. Although I had to sign a waiver when I found out we're going to be transferred off our ship during the Jordan crisis. In the Jordan crisis, I was our ship was being the biggest of the nuclear capable. I was on a heavy cruiser. It was nuclear capable, nuclear all around it, inside it. We had Talos, Azrock, Tartar missiles. Okay? The thing about it was we were the biggest, and we had 2 destroyers go with us. But every person like me, 2 of us were going to be helicoptered off that day because we had brothers in Vietnam. We were the only last sons, so they're going to transfer us off there. But we signed a waiver to stay, both of us. And we went into the Black Sea, and we went up against 1,000 Russian ships. Admiral Zumwalt ordered us to do zigzags in the ocean under GQ battle stations. My battle station was down on near the post office. Actually, we're above the main deck by one level. And we were by the post office was my GQ station. But I still couldn't see out. Some of my people in my division were on watch, steering the ship, speeding the ship up. It's called the lee helm. On the helm, one was on the helm where the steering wheel's at. The other one was on lee helm. The other one was on lookout. There's 3 people constantly in my division were constantly on watch. Had to be up there. During GQ, there was 2 lookouts, so there's 4 people on there. So you had the helm, the lee helm. You could have had more because during GQ, you could have had 3 or 4 people to do that same job. But they were all assigned to that thing, and we shut the doors behind us. And we don't know what's going on. They had a great idea, but you can't talk about it on the radio. I mean, it's radio silence to everybody. We can't see what's going on. But our ship was going zigzag all through the Black Sea. We didn't know. And after 3 days, then on the speaker, the captain said, I want everybody topside. Don't just take off your daggum life vests and come to get your asses up here. We all come up there in t-shirts. We were hot. We were sweaty because we haven't even taken a shower for 3 days. We come in t-shirts and the clothes we were on up to the top of the thing. And we saw look, hundreds. But according to 2 things, they were all together, there was 1,000 Russian ships. And these Russians that were right there at us, we were crossing, that he had us looking at, they were at Parade's Rest, looking sharp. They were at Parade's Rest. And we flipped them the bird, and we, give them the arm, whatever we just get thing. And these guys they were smiling, and some of them were smiling, cracking a smile. They loved the fact that we could do that. Their country would have been killed. But we flipped the bird, and we tossed our hats off. We were flipping them the birds. I mean, we were just having a ball. Their ships, my God, they looked worse than ours. As far as these weapons, oh my God, these things had, they were awesome looking. They had missiles, guns, everything all over them. I mean, these are powerful people. They built powerful ships. But Admiral Zumwalt, he did zigzags between 1,000 ships in the Black Sea for 3 days. They never touched anyone, and they got out of our way. They let a submarine rescue ship rescue a boat from the bottom of the water that was a spy boat with information. Their spy ship. They didn't want the Russians to get it. It was either a boat or submarine. I'm not sure, but I'm pretty sure it was a spy boat. I might be getting stories confused here, but we were there for a reason, and we were going to make sure that we got to that before they did. And that's why we were sent in there. We were sent in there as the leading cruiser with 2 guided missile destroyers, and we were with our missiles out, ready to fire. And they didn't mess with us. With enough on there just about to end the world. And I'll put it that way. The Russians didn't want no part of it. At least put a pretty good dent in the world. So what I'm trying to tell you is I've been seeing some during the Vietnam War. Yeah, and since God, understand that God wrote the book of life. He wrote my life thing. And so too many things, coincidences happened in my life. Look at your own life. But I was born Easter Sunday at 6 o'clock in the morning. I married my wife, Shirley. She was born on Saturday, the day before, at 6 o'clock at night. What a coincidence that is. 12 hours difference between me and my wife. She was born on April 1952, and I was born April 13th, 1952. She was from South Carolina. I was from California. 2 oceans apart. How did we meet? Ask your own parents how they met. You'll hear some kind of strange coincidence. That's because God saw the story unfold in front of him before he made the decision to marry us to marry and have children. Before he chose them and created us. And we were alive since the beginning of time. So these people that are supposed to have been born since the beginning of time, God saw that. They're still not harmed. They're still living. And they're identical. The kids that were not born to parents will be born to parents, in other words. They're still living, waiting to be born. But that's where these mothers in the future have to have children. Try and sign to them. The men can't quit trying to have children or adopt children. This world has to be changed. I'm pleading with this world in this message. I didn't know I'd be going this far in this message. But this is it. This is the last day. We have to do this because Nvidia's on our threshold. What happened? The first day, remember when let's go back to Cairo when I went there the first time. I don't know who I was going to meet. I didn't know who I was going to see. I didn't know anything. I didn't know where I was going. But I went exactly where God knew where I was going, and he knew who I was going to see. When I got there, I met them, and I told them who I was. I'm Rasul Allah. Rasul Allah means God's messenger. This is what I'm saying. I call myself God's messenger, and I said Allah. I'm not in Islam. I'm not a Muslim, but I am Rasul Allah. I'm a Christian of all religions, gods of all religions. They could speak English. The ones that talk to could speak, or they interpreted others. And they asked me questions, and I'd answer everything perfectly, whether God answered them. There wasn't a question I couldn't answer and didn't have to stutter. God answered them immediately and gave them the right answers. They loved me. They loved me, but they say I talk too much about God, Allah. But God talks to me all the time, and I want to talk about God all the time, Allah. So I met a doctor, a cardiologist. He was waiting. Let's talk to you. Yes, okay. He come to me in my bedroom, and he said, "I'm a cardiologist. I stay here." Either that or I approached him, and he said, "You have to know that I'm a cardiologist, and there's been a pill there's been created in your country that person could die in their sleep peacefully." And he called the name, the generic name, perfectly. I didn't write it down, and I can't remember it, but I'm sure it's there. And he called it, and he says, "You're already seeing the results of this drug. It's being manufactured in Africa, throughout Africa, which Egypt is part of Africa too. So in Egypt as well. And the results have already been, meaning that this doomsday pill that's been created, if it is even under FDA approval, to kill yourself in your sleep. Who wouldn't want to take it that's got advanced arthritis and hurting all day? Who wouldn't want to take it when they're depressed and tired of living in this world or living in the situations they're living in? They were counting on half this world at least on taking this pill. This is what this is what's waiting for us. This is what's waiting for us right now, being developed, and as I talk, it's already been developed. It's already being sold. But now, this is like a big challenge to them. They got to try to sell their stuff after I said mine. They're going to be coming at you twice as fast and twice as hard. The defendant would say, "Oh, he's crazy. He doesn't know more than God than the man in the universe. You know, this is all BS." They want as much that time as they can get. Depends on what you believe. There's no such thing as belief. This is fact. You're breathing because of God. How else can you explain? If I said any other source, you wouldn't be able to think. No other source has a memory. Electricity doesn't have a memory. A noble gas doesn't have a memory. Radiation. Nothing has a memory. But once you give something a memory, then you got a problem. Now it can think. In other words, look back and figure things out. And that be rationalized. Then you got a problem. Now we've given too much memory to A&I, yet we're about to lose our own places. That's what's planned for us with NVIDIA. NVIDIA will still exist because I'm going to put them out of business financially, and I'm going to take over your systems. And when I take over the systems, we're going to use it with the information of the angels. I'm going to go now. I spoke on it off except for this. Selena, call me, order my ticket. I'll go there in a heartbeat. I'll be there at your call. Get me the plane ticket. Try to get the flight from Florence to Charlotte to London and straight to Cairo. It's a lot shorter, hopefully cheaper. But I'll be there in a heartbeat as fast as you can get me there. You're my travel agent. You've been for 2 years. I love you. I want to marry you. And you're young, but you got to have the children. You can't be a professional woman and not have the children that you're born with. That's not what the humans are all about. We're about God. God lives in every one of us and all of our unborn. They have to be born now. I love you. I really need you. But you need me. You're going to inherit all this equal if you marry me. Elon Musk won't be the richest man in the world. I'll be far times wealthier than he is. But you're gonna inherit every dime and every cent of what I am. If anything, whenever anything happens to me, we can have a good life until I die, and then you can have a great life afterwards. But you're going to hopefully carry on my work. I love you. Good night. I'm going to try to